So our goal as humans, right, is to operate at a certain ability within our potential. We want to eventually reach that potential. We want to always be working to that. And I just have always heard of that referred to, and I like referring to it as that staying at a high level, right? That's where I want to be. That's where I want to perform. That's where I want my life to exist. You have got to know what being high level means for you. You have got to know what your goals and priorities are and what you're trying to accomplish. You've got to reverse engineer them, and then you've got to 100% be in on what you're in on. If you're at work and you're training, you got to be 100% in on work and training. You can't be thinking about the argument you had with a kid or your wife or anything else. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Man Minutes. As always, super excited to have you here and grateful for you just taking time out of your day to listen and try to get better, right? That's what we're all here to do. That's what we're all supposed to do, is try to reach that potential. So we're going to dive right into it today. Today, we are going to talk about staying high level. Now, what do I mean when I say staying high level? So our goal as humans, right, is to operate at a certain ability within our potential. We want to eventually reach that potential. We want to always be working to that. And I just have always heard of that referred to, and I like referring to it as that staying at a high level, right? That's where I want to be. That's where I want to perform. That's where I want my life to exist. Now, a lot of times it's hard to stay there. So how do we get our lives in all different areas, right? Whether we're talking about being a husband, being a father, your work, how do we get those areas to be at a high level? So today we're just going to talk about some things that I have found over the years from talking to other people, that I've talked to my wife about, that I've talked to mentors about, on how I can get to a place where I can stay at a high level when we're doing life. Right? So one example that I have, and what you'll find sometimes is sometimes these areas of our life are conflicting, right? Like it's easy for me to be at a high level with my personal life, but sometimes then my work life is going to fall off. It's easy for me to be at a high level as a husband, but maybe I'm not going to be doing great on something else. So how do I stay at a high level and get to be and maintain that in all different areas? Right, so we're gonna throw it back a little bit to when I was a new baby SWAT cop and trying to figure things out, right? Trying to constantly improve my skill level and really trying to buckle down on my shooting abilities and improve those, because I knew that was the foundation for everything that I had to do. And this was prior to even me going through our testing selection process, right? Those baseline skills are gonna be what makes me be able to perform other things that I need to when you get into the tactics world, right? Like if you can't shoot good, doesn't matter how good you can clear a room, because that's stuff just doesn't matter if you can't do the baseline skills. It'd be like being able to read a defense as a quarterback, but you can't throw a ball, right? You have to have skills that are built upon. So as I'm preparing for this testing process, as I'm a new SWAT cop, I'm really focusing on my shooting ability and getting better. At the time, I worked a Wednesday through Saturday schedule. I had a second shift schedule. I was getting off. I'm supposed to get off at like 1 in the mornings on Saturday night, Sunday morning. But I would go that next morning on Sundays. I would go out to Rio out here and shoot matches, pistol matches, some 2-gun matches. I didn't really do the 3-gun because I am horrible with a shotgun, but I would go shoot matches. And that was something that I did to stay high level in those areas, right? It was competing. It was getting humbled by dudes that were air conditioning workers. It was getting humbled by kids that are 20 years old that have been shooting since they're 12, right? And you're a SWAT cop and you're out there and you're going out there to improve and get better and really see where you're at. Well, something that kind of caused conflict for me was just at home, right? Like it was a very hard thing. My wife's at home. She's been at home with kids. I get off work. I come home. I sleep for a few hours, wake up early, meet up with some buddies, and we drive an hour out to the east side of town to shoot these matches, and then we come home and then I'm tired, right? So I really, really had to think about like what was staying at a high level and how did I balance staying at a high level for my job, going to training, doing things outside of what I was just required to do by the department and by our team, and then staying high level as at home, staying high level as a husband, staying high level as a father. And how do you balance those things out? And how do you figure those things out? And I think you guys can all probably think of examples of those things where, hey man, I'm performing really good at this, and I'm doing really good. Like I'm having a killer month in business, man. Like hitting all my metrics, crushing my metrics, really performing, making a ton of money, but I'm not home much. I might have missed the kid's game, might have missed a date night. I might have missed something else, right? So that conflict can exist. So what do we do to stay at a high level in different areas of our lives? I'm sure you guys have all heard the term like work-life balance. I have kind of a different opinion on this. I will tell you that in my opinion, you're never going to have balance at equal times, right? So like you just can't. Like I can't be out here doing this podcast and being 100% in on being a dad. I can't be two places at once. And that's kind of how I think of balance. I think of balance in like a weekly basis, right? Or maybe I can break it up to daily for certain things, but in a weekly basis. So how do I stay high level in those areas and do things? I'm going to give you guys kind of 3 key concepts that I use to prioritize it, and that helps me just get to where I want to be and stay at where I want to be. And you're going to hear some of these things I've said in the past on some other podcasts, on some of our previous shows. But the first one is like, you have got to know your goals and priorities. So if I'm going to be high level at something, I got to know where I'm trying to get. So if I'm going to be high level as a business owner, what does that mean in my industry? If I'm going to be a high level real estate agent, what does that mean? What number of transactions am I doing a month? How big are those transactions? What are my metrics? If I'm going to be high level as a knife maker, how many of these awesome little CCW blades do I have to sell? What does that mean to be high level in whatever area you're training to be high level in? What does it mean to be high level as a husband? Does it mean providing, being a protector, financially providing, emotionally providing? What does that mean to you? I have my thoughts and opinions on what it means, but what does it mean to you to be high level as a husband? And then what does it mean to be high level as a father? Does that mean never ever missing a practice or a game? Does that mean always stopping everything you're doing every time your child comes to you? You have got to know what being high level means for you. You have got to know what your goals and priorities are and what you're trying to accomplish. So I think take some time. Like if you've never done that, if you've never sat down, gotten a little notebook and a pen and sat there and spent some time in the quiet and written down what are my priorities in life, like you have to do that. Everything you do is going to be based on what you write down there, or at least it should, right? We got to be intentional with what we want. We got to be intentional with what we're going after. And if we don't know the direction we're heading, how are we supposed to ever arrive there? You've got to have your priorities and goals set. Understand what those mean, and then take action to get there to be able to achieve a high level at something. If I want a high level in fitness, I promise you, if you are diligent and you have an actual workout plan written down that you're keeping track of, that's telling you your weights, that's telling you your increases, your jumps, every time you go to the gym, what your sets you're supposed to do, what exercises, that's going to be much more effective than going there with having no idea. We all know this. Every study shows that. Every study agrees with that. Having a plan is going to be more effective to achieving desired outcomes that you want to achieve. So how do I get there? How do I realize that? So number one, you got to know what your priorities are. What are they? And maybe they're changing during your type of seasons of life, right? Maybe it is right now just to be all in on your business. Maybe you got a new baby at home and it's to be the best, like brand new husband or father and husband that I can be at this second because I just have a new child in this world. Maybe you just got married and you're all in there. You're going to see your priorities shift and things kind of change, or at least where your emphasis goes is going to change every now and then. So you just got to keep track of that and know where you're heading, right? So that's the first thing, is just knowing your priorities. Once you have your goals and priorities set, now I can reverse engineer a path to get there. That's number 2. Have a plan. Have a path that is written out on where you need to do, what you want things to look like at the end. I've talked about this before, right? Like, me and my wife, we're going to live till we're 120 years old. I'm going to be on my deathbed. I'm going to be surrounded by all my family, all my kids, all my grandkids, great-grandkids, my wife. And they're going to talk about me being the rock of their family, me being the one that was always there, the one that they could come to, the one that they looked to for strength. Like, that's my end game, right? That is where I ultimately want things to go. That's the final position in my life, and that's where I want to be. So how do I get there, right? How do I get to that plan? I've got to put those things in place now, and I have to perform at a high level in all those different areas to get to those places. I can't be a low-level dad right now, and then when things are bad, expect them to treat me like a high-level dad. I can't be a low-level husband right now and expect my wife to treat me like a high-level husband. And sometimes our reality does not match our expectation in those areas. So what do you want it to be? Do you have a plan set in place to do things? If you're in your late 20s right now, and you know you want to be somewhere by your 60, hey, I want to be retired, I want to be done working by the time I'm 55 or 60. Do you have a plan in place? Do you know what that's going to take? Do you know the things you have to accomplish by then to do those things? Do you know how much you have to save every month to be able to live at that same income or that same level when you're 55, 60 years old? Develop those plans, reverse engineer that stuff, because that's how you get to where you want to be. That's how you get to the potential that God has put into you, is by planning and taking action. But you've got to reverse engineer it. Right? So for me, when I start out with a plan for making a knife, I don't just start getting screws and metal and start slopping things together. I have a final design that is designed up on paper or in CAD, and then we go back to the beginning and we build to that design, not opposite. That planning, that execution, that process is what makes it successful throughout things. And I've got to reverse engineer my life. I've got to know where I want to be and don't get too caught up in details, right? Like, I think details are good, but don't be so caught up in every little single minute detail that if one little things get thrown off, you're not sure what's going to happen or where you're going to go. So you have to know those things. So reverse engineer it, plan it out, have ideas, have steps. Right? The third thing that you have to do, and this is the biggest one, is be 100% in on whatever you are doing. That is how you become high level at certain things. Right? If I am out here and I'm working in the shop and I'm working on knives and I'm sweating like crazy because it's freaking Arizona summer, I'm 100% in on working on knives. I'm not working on knives for 2 minutes and then checking my phone. I'm not working on knives for 5 minutes and then answering a phone call unless it's something super important. I'm not working on knives and then stopping that because, I just want to go do something else. Like, I'm going to be 100% in. I'm going to set time blocks and I'm going to do those things and be all in on that. If I'm outside and I'm out in the grass and I'm throwing the ball with Miller or kicking the soccer ball with McKenna, I'm 100% in there. I'm focusing solely on what I'm doing at the moment. That allows me to do things at a high level. If I'm distracted with a bunch of other nonsense, and guys, like, I'm speaking to the guys here, like, I know it's hard to not get distracted. Ladies too, but it's hard. Like, it is hard with that phone, with everything that you're thinking about, with your brain. If your brain is like mine, man, I lay down at night and I'm still thinking about 100 different things that I need to do tomorrow, or that I should have done better, or should have changed, or should be doing. There's gonna always be those distractions. But when you're working, when you're on a date night, be 100% in on that date night. Don't worry about those other things. Just do it, right? Just be there. Be all in on whatever you're doing at that moment, so that that person that you're doing it with, if there's people involved, or that business is receiving all that you have to offer. It's not other stuff, right? You're not half in. Half in a bunch of different places is not going to work. Like, it just doesn't. And I know this because I've tried, right? As my career ended on the police department, I had a lot of different things going on. And just being 100% honest, like I was not always 100% in on any one of those things. It's just the way it was. And it's sometimes that's hard to admit, right? Like, it's hard to admit that, hey, I'm outside and I'm kicking the soccer ball around with my daughter, and I'm thinking about work, and I'm distracted. And it's hard. Like, it's not always what you want it to be. But you've got to take steps and you've got to make progress. And just being aware is huge, man. Like, I can't tell you how important that is. If you are oblivious to the fact that, like, you are not being where you're at, like you're not being where your feet are, then things are going to be really difficult to try to improve. If you're not open to advice, if you're not open to listening to others and getting feedback, it's going to be really hard to make things better and stay at that high level in those different things. So you got to 100% be in on whatever you're going to be in on. Right? So what are some things that I can be 100% in on to make me a better husband? Right? When I am with my wife, when I get home from work, 100% in, I can come in and I can not get right into a bunch of other stuff, and I can have a conversation and have a check-in on how our day was. Like, hey, how was your day? How was work for you? How were the kids? Did anything exciting happen? Be 100% there. Be where your feet are and think about it and talk and have those conversations. Like, that's what gets marriages to a high level, is connecting, having communication, being there for each other, and not always just worrying about what's next on the task list. But you got to take those steps, right? Another thing is just date nights. Stay on top of it. Like, make your marriage, make your relationship a priority. You've got to make time to do those things. You cannot be at a high level if you're not putting time into that area of your life. It's just not going to work. Nothing works that way. Think about something that you can get to a high level at and not put time in. Like, I don't know what it is. I haven't found it yet. Everything that I think you want to do good at, or like you want to perform at a high level at, you've got to put time and effort in. And that's just how it is. So you've got to know those things and you've got to understand that. How can you be a high level father? Be there for your kids. We've talked about it in different podcasts. When your kids come to you with something, and if you're able to step away and just listen for a second, do that. Be there for them. Go to stuff. Make sure that the priorities you set, when we talk about setting priorities, the stuff you wrote down in here that are your priorities and your goals, make sure you're living it out. If you're saying that your marriage is number one or whatever, if your faith is number one and your marriage is two and your family's three and work's four, then make sure you're making decisions based on that order. And be 100% in when you're at those things or when you're dealing with those things, because that's what it's going to be. That's what makes it what it is. You've got to be all in on where you're at. Be where your feet are. I've heard that saying a bunch. I don't know where the first time I heard it was, but it just makes sense. Like, be where your feet are. And hey, just to be clear, man, like 100% honest, like, I am not perfect at this. I am probably a C+ at this, like B-. Like, that's just being real. I have a lot of different stuff going on and it's hard, but I'm constantly trying to be aware of it. And I've got to the point now where, like, I will tell my kids and my wife, my friends, if I'm doing other things, to like call me out on it. Like, hey dad, like, we're supposed to be playing a board game and you keep picking up your phone. All right. Like, it's annoying at first to have that happen, but then you're like, okay, cool. Like, they're holding me accountable and we need that. right? They're getting me to live out what I say are priorities and what I say are important things to me. They're helping me do that. And that's what I need. I know I do. Like, I need help. I know I'm not perfect on my own. I know I need people all the time in my corner helping me out and figuring things out, because that's the only way that I can get better. If I'm at a game and I'm watching them, like, be invested in their game. When they come to you at the end of the game and they ask you a question about something, hopefully you know what they're talking about because you weren't sitting in your phone the whole time watching a football game or scrolling. Like, you were invested there, right? If you're going to something with them, if you're sitting down, if you're talking with them, if you're in the car with them, have conversations. Like, a lot of times we get this idea of high level, and we get the social media idea of like, hey, it's this amazing trip. We went to Maui, we did all these things, and it's just, oh my gosh, this is it. Like, that's, to me, that's not what it is. For some, it might be. I'm just telling you, for me, like a normal dude, it's got a family, got a business, works hard. Like, that's not what high level is to me. High level is true, real connection. High level is meaningful, honest connection and relationships. Like, that's high level. It's not taking a bunch of pictures and posting them on Instagram of an awesome house we rented on the beach for a month. And then the camera goes off and me and my wife are in completely separate rooms. We're sleeping in different beds. We don't like each other. My kids are pissed off. My kids don't want to be around me. Like, that's not high level. That's not what it is. High level is when you get to the place where you're old enough and your kids live somewhere else and they want to be with you. They want to come see you. Like, that's how you get to be high level as a parent. So understand those things. How do you get to high levels in business? Like anything else, man, it's consistency. It is showing up even when you don't want to. Like Tyson, I don't know if I'll get the quote exactly right, but Tyson said something about, like, to be great, you have to do something that you hate and do it like you love it. Like, it's true. Like, there's days, especially during the summer, I do not want to be out in this shop working. Like, I'm sweating my ass off out here right now, and it's like 100 degrees in this shop. I don't want to be grinding. I don't want metal dust on me. I don't want G10 on me. I don't want freaking that stuff everywhere. I don't want to have my respirator on. Like, it's hot. It's hot. Like, it sucks. It's not comfortable. But I know if I don't do those things, I'm not going to get to where I want to be. So having that long-term vision that I have reverse engineered and having my waypoints to check in at along the way throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year, the decades, like, that's how I get there. Is being consistent, is constantly showing up, is investing in my business, right? Is spending some money on places and spending money on things to help me get better, to help me get messages out there because I believe in what I do. Like, Man Minutes is not a profitable thing for me, right? It is something I enjoy doing. I know I have struggles in my life. I know I struggle staying at a high level, moving back and forth. I know I have struggles in my brain, being a dad, with marriage. But I think I've also, like, worked through a lot of stuff, and I've had a lot of amazing mentors and people that have invested in me, and, like, to share that stuff is huge, right? So, like, I invest in those things, in those passion projects, to stay at a high level. Like, this keeps me accountable. Me putting myself out there on camera, speaking, saying how I live, like, I better show up that way, right? 5 years from now, if I'm doing the same thing and you're seeing the same knives here, like, I'm being a hypocrite. And that's not what I want. Like, that's not high level. So I've got to keep those things going in business. I've got to stay consistent. I got to find a thing that I want to do and move towards it and just start. I have conversations with dudes all the time about, like, whatever reason it is, like, people get really stuck up on websites. Like, oh, I don't want to push publish on my website. Hey, dude, like, when you push publish, it's not like that blast goes out to everyone on the internet that, hey, there's a new website right here. Like, you got to go get clients. You got to go get customers. You have to build a brand to get them to your website. All that does is publishing a website is gives them a place to go. But like that fear of, for whatever reason of starting, of having something out there, just a landing page where people can find out who you are and what you do, that fear is real for a lot of people. They don't want to do it. They don't want to talk about it. And I don't know if it's a comparison game because they don't think they're there. I don't know if it's, hey, I'm not ready. These people are doing those things. These people are doing that. Like, I don't know what it is, but you've got to start. If you want to be successful in business, if you want to get to a high level in business, you've got to start, you've got to take action, and you've slowly got to narrow down on like what your best ROI is and keep moving. Like that's how you get to high level in places. And you'll figure out like discipline and consistency is the biggest thing to stay high level in all three areas. Like me and my wife, we have date nights. We are disciplined about our date nights. We're consistent about our date nights. They do not get pushed aside for stuff. Like those are consistent. Like they're so consistent, we will miss kids' practices to go on a date night because I go back to my priorities, right? My priorities are my faith, my marriage, my kids, then my business. So if my marriage is becoming above my kids, like we're going to do date night before I'm going to go to a practice. And people may disagree with that. People may not see that, but that's how we do things and that's what works. And we stick to our priorities and we plan those things out because we want to stay at a high level. And sometimes it's going to be conflicting. I know like I got some law enforcement dudes that are watching this, some military dudes that are watching this. Like it's really hard sometimes to stay high level in your profession, not the average, not where you want to be, not your normal cop or your normal in anything, but to be functioning at a high level. Like it's hard to do that sometimes. But it's awesome also. Like it's an amazing job. It's so fun that you get to do like some of the most amazing things you ever do. But it's really hard to balance that with your other stuff. And I get that. So again, like we'll just go back over those three things. You have got to know your priorities. You've got to reverse engineer them. And then you've got to 100% be in on what you're in on. If you're at work and you're training, you got to be 100% in on work and training. You can't be thinking about the argument you had with the kid or your wife or anything else. If you're on a real deal, right? Like you can't be doing that stuff either. And I promise you that happens. And I know some of you guys can relate because I know I've been there, right? Like I know like, hey, we got called out. I was just at a birthday party. We got called out and now we're going to something big and I'm pissed off because I'm missing this. And my kid going to be sad? Is my kid going to be upset with me? Is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? Like you cannot force yourself or you cannot allow yourself to be in those situations. You got to be 100% in on where you are. And what stops that a lot of the time is not being efficient in the time we have. So like you're going to feel bad if you go outside and you're like halfway playing catch with your kid. If you're halfway in there, like, oh, I'm playing catch, but I also know that I need to do these like few little things around the house. So I'm going to throw the ball a few times. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to do this. I'm going to throw the ball a few times and I'm going to do this. And I'm guilty of this one, I promise. But like then I regret it because I'm like, gosh, man, I just wasn't there. Like I wasn't showing him that he was the priority. If you're on a date night with your wife and you're constantly checking your phone or you're responding to emails because work is there, like you may as well just tell her like, hey, work's more important right now. And honestly, sometimes you might be better off doing that. Like just say, hey, this is super important email. I got to respond. I'm sorry. I got to do this. Or you live your priorities out and you don't. Like, hey, at this time, on these times, I don't answer my phone. I don't respond. I don't do those things. And that might not always be plausible for some of you. But you've got to live those things out. You got to know your priorities. You got to recognize what they are, reverse engineer them, and then just be 100% in on whatever you're doing and whoever you're with when you're there. Like just be in on that. That's what you got to do. So hopefully those things help, man. That is something that helps me as far as a system to keep things moving and to keep me going in the direction I want to be. Like my main goal at the end of my life is to have reached the potential that God has given me and to have my family love me and be close and be tight around me. And this is kind of what I have done to best lay that out for me. So hopefully that helps for you. As always, got a verse to end this one out, and I think this one is good, and I love it. It's Ephesians 3:20. It says, "Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us." So like, God can give you so much more than you can imagine. He's able to do immeasurably more than what's in you, than what you think, like than what even can fathom. So like if there's stuff you want to go after, if you want to get to high levels in places, like keep faith, go after it, go do the things, take action, be consistent, and just stay on task. And I promise you, like, you will be amazed what happens at the end of the day. So hey guys, if you liked what you heard today, please share it. Like, send it to a buddy, send it to a friend, repost it. Just send it out, man. Like, if you don't, obviously don't. But if you think it's a good message and you think other people should hear it, if it's valuable to you, like, share it with the people you care about, that you want to get better, that you want to do those things. Tag us on social media. You can tag us on Instagram at MilmacAZ. You can tag us on our Milmac Blades account, whatever. Share it, go check it out, listen to some other episodes. And as always, we love hearing your feedback. So if there's a topic you want us to hit, like, let us know. Like, I'm all about learning and diving into other topics that maybe aren't always on the top of my brain. So thank you guys.